I'll seek you out, flay you alive.
Pogo here, and welcome to the next episode of the Survival Games mini-series. I know I said in the last episode that I was finished, other than the live stream that I'm going to be doing soon, but there's actually one more thing that I need to do. We have to correct a problem that was pointed out to me in a comment on the last video. So as you know, in the last video we implemented rollback ability so that the blocks would be logged whenever they are removed or placed for any sort of reason, and then we could roll them back when the arena finishes, undo all of the different changes. Now the issue that was made is if you go take a look inside of arena, you'll see that when the arena ends, when we remove the last player, if there are no more players left, we call the rollback method in the rollback manager, but then the issue here is that the rollback does not, the rollback actually applies to all of the arenas. Because remember, there's one rollback manager which is in charge of every single arena. So if you have 5 different arenas running at the same time, and then one of them finishes, it would reset all 5, and that could cause problems like being trapped in blocks, or losing blocks that you placed, or other strange things that you certainly wouldn't want happening when you're in the middle of playing a game. So I was trying to figure out a few different ways to handle this, and the first thing that I thought was, okay, maybe we could have the store the arena. Like right here, we get the arena, so we could have maybe a hash map of arena and block state. The issue with that is that some of these events, like the block burn event, those don't have a player in them. The block burns not necessarily because of a player. It could be because of a natural event or an item that a player used or something else. So obviously that wouldn't work. We couldn't get the arena. So the idea that I had was that we could implement WorldEdit support so that when you define an arena, you make a WorldEdit selection and then it saves your selection to the configuration file, so that when you, with like the whole block thing, you can check to see if the block is within the bounds of the arena, and that's how you can tell which block is in an arena. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the WorldEdit support that will actually, get an instance of the WorldEdit plugin, and then load and save the bounds, like the 2 points that you make in your selection. And then we also have to modify the rollback manager a little bit so that it works with the WorldEdit. So the first thing that we're going to do, also this does assume that you sort of know how to use WorldEdit. I have a video in the bucket coding series that tells you how to use WorldEdit to do exactly what we're going to do here, put it in your build path, and then get a selection. So you might want to watch that video if you get confused with anything related to WorldEdit. So we're going to go to the build path and libraries, and we're going to add an external jar. We're going to add the WorldEdit jar. So you want to make sure that you have WorldEdit in your plugins folder, and then you can add that to your project. So now, if we go back over to main, we can write a public static WorldEdit plugin called get WorldEdit. And this is easy. We can just say return WorldEdit plugin bucket.getServer.getPluginManager.getPlugin WorldEdit. So what this does is it gets the WorldEdit plugin and then it casts it to WorldEdit plugin. And this is like the main class that's used. This class extends Java plugin. If you look at the code, you'll see that it does extend Java plugin. So you do have the ability to cast it right here. You can cast it, and then obviously when we make the plugin.yml, we will specify this as being a dependency, so that if you don't have WorldEdit installed, it would not load the plugin, and it would tell you that you need to have WorldEdit installed. So this is how we can get an instance of the WorldEdit plugin, and then in there, that's how we can get the selection of a player. So the first thing that we want to do, let's head over to Commands, and we're going to do Create Arena. And we're going to add in a little bit of code right here. So right here, we're going to make sure that the player has a selection, and then we're going to save their selection in the configuration file. So first we're going to say selection s is equal to main.get worldEdit.get selection for p. And then selection is obviously a class that is defined in WorldEdit. So we want to go ahead and say if s is equal to null, then we want to tell them that they need to make a selection. So we're going to say, there we go. You must make a WorldEdit selection of the arena. So they have to make a WorldEdit selection of the arena. And now at this point we know that they do have a selection. So you can use the get maximum point and get minimum point, and then that will give you the ability to get the 2 points and then construct a selection from there. So we're gonna go ahead and change this. Instead of creating the section, which I'll delete in 1 second, we're gonna say settingsmanager.getarenas.set, and it's gonna be name dot corner A, so the first corner, and then that's going to be s.get minimum point, and then we're also going to set name dot corner B to be the maximum point. So we're going to save both points in the, and we don't actually need that. We're going to save both points into the configuration file. And then that will be good. Now a couple of other things that we can do is over in these 3 add methods, you can actually check and make sure that the location is within the bounds of the arena, because you'd obviously want to make sure that that's the case. So we'll do that in a second, but first we need to go over to arena and actually have it load everything in. So we're going to have the string ID. We're going to have a cuboid selection called selection, or not really selection, we're going to call it bounds, because those are the bounds of the arena. Cuboid selection is a subclass of selection, and it represents a selection that's sort of like a cube, maybe a square cube or a rectangle cube. Basically it has 2 corners, and then it's like a regular square or rectangle from there. So now we obviously need to go ahead and load it in. So right here, we're going to say this dot bounds is equal to new cuboid selection, and it's going to take in a world and 2 locations. So I guess we actually have to save the world, but save the world. Yeah, we actually have to save the name of the world. But first we're going to, right here, we're going to say, not get config, arena, or settings, manager.getarenas.get, and then remember we did id dot corner A, and then point 2 is going to be settings manager.getarenas.get id, that's not supposed to be in quotes, id dot corner B, and then the world, which we need to know, will be, where do we save it? Right here. Settings manager.getarenas.set name.world. So we're going to set the world, and it's going to be s.getWorld.getName. So now we have the 3 pieces of information we need to load it. We can go back over here and say settings manager.getarenas.get. It'll be id.world, and then obviously that's just a string, so we want to write bucket.getServer, if I could type, dot get world that. And now since this line is really long, let's try and make it a little more readable. Okay. So now we set up the bounds properly, and we can go ahead and write a getter. Public cuboid selection get bounds return bounds. So now we can save and load the bounds of the arena, and now we could go over here, for example, and say, I'm not sure why that's there, but okay, so we have the chest, and what we can say now is if not, we should probably have the arena. So arena A is equal to arena manager.getInstance.getArena arg0. If A is not equal to null, that's what we want to do more. That's better. So we're going to say if not a.getBounds.contains chest.getLocation. So we can use the contains method to tell if a point exists within those bounds. So if the chest is outside of the bounds of the arena, it's obviously, we don't want it to work. So we're going to send them a message, and we're going to say, we're going to say that chest is outside of the bounds of the arena. And we're going to actually copy this because we're going to use something similar to it right here. I'm just going to rename this to A for continuity because we named it A in the other class. So now right here, we're going to say if it doesn't contain, in this case, it will be target.getLocation. Remember, target for the signed target is the target block. So if it does not contain, if the bounds of the arena, which we have right here, do not contain the target, then we want to say that sign, or actually, wait. I guess that doesn't matter. I'm sorry. That's the lobby sign. It doesn't matter. Okay. Sorry about that. Finally, the spawn does obviously matter because we need to have the spawn. So we can say if it does not contain p.getLocation, because in this case we're setting the spawn to the player's location, we can say that spawn, or that location probably, is outside the bounds of the arena. So in the two cases where it does matter, in add chest we want to make sure that the chest is within the bounds. With add spawn we want to make sure that the bounds are within, or the spawn is within the bounds of the arena. If it's outside of the arena, that really wouldn't make any sense. Otherwise, that should all be okay. So now that we have these bounds for the arena, we can go ahead and use the rollback manager, which is right here. Now, I could optionally use a hash map of arena and then an array list of block state, but that's a little bit confusing. So we're going to go into the arena class, and we're going to declare a private array list block state called changed blocks. And the way that I like to order, I like to order these because we have, some information about the arena, and then, other information. And then these are like temporary things. I guess the arena state is as well, but, like the list of players in there and the list of changed blocks, those are, always being changed. So here we want to say, right here, this dot changed blocks is equal to new array list of type block states. Okay, so we need to save that, and then we're going to have just a few methods. We'll write them right here. We're going to have a public void add block state, which takes in a block state called state, and all it does is say changed blocks, which also could be called changed block states dot add state, and then a public void rollback. And then what this is going to do, this might actually rather make this private, but what it's going to say is it's going to say for block state in changed blocks state.update, and I think we said true. The first one was force, we want to force it, and false for updating the physics. And then finally, changed blocks.clear. So after we roll back all of the blocks, we want to remove them all. So Now we have the arena. And remember, this will be costly because every time a block is changed, you have to figure out the correct arena. So obviously, if it's being changed by a player, we can know the arena that way. But otherwise, we would have to iterate over all of the arenas in order to figure out which one is correct. Unless there might be a way in WorldEdit to, get the region, but then again, these aren't defined as regions. That would be WorldGuard. So just talking out loud. All right, so over here, we're going to remove these array list of block states because, remember, those are now being stored in the arenas and not in the rollback manager. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, we can also remove the rollback method. And we're also going to remove, we're going to have, in the end, it's going to be a private void handle. This is going to be the endpoint. It's going to be block and arena. And this is going to take in the arena and the block, and it'll say, or really just a block state. So that's what we need. We're going to say arena.add block state, and we're going to rename this to be state. But we don't always know all of that information. So if we're given, let's change this a little bit. If we're given a block state and a player, then we can go ahead and get the correct arena and then do state and arena, which I'm going to rename. Okay. So if we know the player and the block state, then we can do it with the, we can get the arena for the player. Otherwise, we might not know that, and we could write a private void handle, which only takes in, I guess in this case you would need, I don't think that state has a location. No, it does. Okay. So this one will take in just a block state. So this is, let me comment these. If you don't have a player nor know the arena, or really you would never know the arena. So if you don't have a player, then you would use this one, and it's just going to say for arena in arena manager.getInstance.getArenas, which we're going to write really quickly. If arena.getBounds.contains state.getLocation, then we're going to, now we know the correct arena, so we can call handle on the state and also that arena, and we obviously want to break out of the loop. And there. So we'll go write that in 1 second. So now we can handle if we only know the block state, or if we also know the player who changed the block, or if we know the arena directly, which I don't think we would. So the first thing is block break. We do know the player, so we can use e.getBlock.getState. So we can call the one since we know who the player is. And then also the block place is the same thing because a player will break or place a block in this case. Now in the case of block burn, we don't know, so we can use the get state, and then that will call this handler, which will have to use the enhanced for loop. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and just quickly write for the get arenas. It's just going to be very simple. Arena get arenas, return arenas. So we're going to have a getter that will give you access to all of the arenas. Now normally I would probably clone this or return it as an array. Would copy all of the elements into an array. But in this case, we don't want to because in the rollback manager, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter. Don't worry about that too much. We're just don't worry about it. So we have the arena right here, and then we check the bounds, and then we handle it. So now we have the getArenas method, which will make that work. Finally, over in the arena class, we obviously want to call the rollback method right here. And then in rollback manager, we do call the add block state method in Arena. So now all of the information will be stored in each Arena instance, under changed blocks. And then we have a private, this should be private. We have a private rollback method that will go through all of the blocks and fix them. And then it will clear all of the blocks because we obviously just fixed them all and we don't want to keep these old references. So that's all for this episode. We needed to, fix the rollback manager because, of that big issue where it would roll back all of the arenas instead of just the one that finished. So we needed to implement something like this where the blocks are stored per arena, and then there's a rollback method that only rolls back the blocks pertaining to that arena. So I decided to use WorldEdit because pretty much all servers have it, and it's nice and simple with that contains method that does a little bit of math for us. So as always, subscribe if you want to see more, comment with what you want to learn. If you like this video, click the like button, and I'll see you guys soon with the live stream and some other coding videos as well. Bye for now.